I didn't have any belief in the spirit world. I didn't think that spirit world even existed. All of a sudden, it's like I'm standing on the moon. Images sort of just appear. It's just, everything is just magical. The light itself is like God. Everything on earth is connected to each other. But everything on earth is connected up to this grid. Intrasnet is basically that grid. We're all connected via DNA. Then we're also connected through quantum entanglement. Everything that you do is going to have a ripple effect out into the universe. I was told that the way the planets lined up, literally I had to have an out-of-body experience to remind myself what my work is on Earth this time. Literally, it's all in my astrological chart. A lot of the issues that we struggle with comes from mom. You're not going to be able to solve anything else if you didn't resolve your mother wound. The spirit guide that's diagonally to the left in front of me says, if I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this. I had 2 near-death experiences, and the first one happened after I gave birth to my 3rd child, and I was hemorrhaging, and I gave birth in the middle of a 7.2 earthquake. So it was a big traumatic event, and then I hemorrhaged, went to the ER, got sent home, hemorrhaged again, saw the doctor, went back to the ER. And so here I am in the ER. It's 1992, so it was a while ago, and I had been bleeding for 3 days, and I'm lying on this table in the ER. They closed the door. I don't even have a bell to ring. And I start hemorrhaging again. And I mean, I'm hemorrhaging like large blood clots. We're talking, like the size of your fist, like really, really big blood clots. So there I am in the ER, and I start bleeding again. And this is divine intervention, because this nurse came to check on me at that particular moment, whatever it was that made her go check on me. Because if she had come a minute or 2 later, I probably wouldn't be here today. So she opens the door, she looks at me, and you just see this, face of horror. Her jaw is dropping. She's just gasping and going, oh, she sees how much I've been bleeding. And I can hear the call on the hospital loudspeakers, OBGYN, stat to the ER. And she quickly cleans up the paper, puts down new paper. The middle-aged physician comes running into the room, and he has another physician in tow, and they examine me. And he says, well, there isn't much blood coming out. First, they examined when I got there, and they said, not much blood coming out. Then they examined me again. And as they examined me the second time now, a huge blood clot came out. And at this point, I've been bleeding for 3 days, so I don't have any blood left in my body. And I can't even keep my eyes open anymore. So I hear all the people coming into the room in the ER, but my eyes are now closed. And they're tipping the table, so my head is going towards the floor, my feet goes up into the ceiling. And I have a nurse on my right that's quoting my blood pressure. She put a blood pressure cuff on. And I have a nurse on my left that's trying to get an IV placed. But I'm already, going into shock now. So it's really, really difficult to get a needle into a vein that's collapsing. So as I'm lying on this bed with my eyes closed, I feel like I jumped out of an airplane and without a parachute. So I'm just falling through air, right? I just feel like I'm plummeting. And the nurse on my right yells out, 50/15, hurry, she yells. And that's my blood pressure. So it is now below supporting a heart rate. And I keep, having the sensation of falling. So the atheist that I was, did not believe in anything at that time. I did not believe in God. I did not believe in religion. I did not believe in the spirit world. That I did not have any beliefs about any of this. So it was shortly after this nurse yelled out 50/15 that I knew that I was dying. So what did I do? I said, well, I was confirmed when I was 14. So I grew up in Sweden, in Northern Europe, and everybody was a Lutheran back then. If you didn't want to be Lutheran, you had to tell someone. It was the state and the church had not yet separated. So we actually went to the church to get our passport. So this is back in the day, 1970s. So here I am on this table in the ER. So what do? I say, well, if there is a God or anything out there, then, please save me. I have 3 children under the age of 6. Please let me live. They need a mother. And then shortly after that, I got pulled out of my body. So now I'm just floating above my body. And but in this state, you're still you. When you're outside your body, you're still you. It's like you get stuff out of your car. That's the most amazing part. Because my first thought was, how can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this
That's such a
work?
trip because
Right?
we're
Because I
so
had
conditioned
no
to believe our
belief system.
mind is like, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if you believed that that was going to happen and then that happened, right? You're going to say, oh, well, that's your belief system. That's your brain, blah, blah, blah. Right. But I didn't have a belief system. So I'm completely surprised that I'm outside my body, but I'm still me. But in that state, I also had the awareness that there was no time on the other side. There was no division of past, present, and future. And you sort of had access to all the different timelines all at the same time. But I also knew that I belonged to the body down on the table. And it's just unconditional, love and peace. There was no fear, of once I was outside my body, there was no fear of my children not having a mother anymore. That fear was when I was in the body. Outside my body, it was just like, whoa, this is nice. Wow, that's my body down there. It was just kind of like a matter of fact, right? There was no like emotional investment in me, my kids needing a mother. So it's really interesting, right? How that all of a sudden just goes away, but you're still you. So, but without the attachments and the emotions that go along with being a human. And then shortly after that, I got sucked back into my body, which is my best description would be like a giant vacuum cleaner. And just like you just get sucked back in. And it happens so quickly, right? Because I have thought so much of this because how fast is that? Because it's just a split millisecond because you are in your body and then you are not. And that transition, it's not like, oh, I felt myself go in and out, or people say, did you leave through the crown chakra or the heart chakra? Well, who knows? Because it's just 1 second you're inside your body and the next second you are not, because it's so quick. That transition is instantaneous. So then they saved my life. Thank God. I'm still here. But then the next day, so I had no belief system in the spirit world or any that there was anything beyond our physical life. And so here I am in the hospital room the next morning, and my sister-in-law had just passed away 10 days earlier. And I hear her. She's in the left corner of my ceiling, and she says, everything's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, yesterday I left my body. Today I think I hear my sister-in-law talking to me. Like, what is happening, right? Because I didn't have any knowledge of near-death experiences, the spirit world, mediumship, nothing. I had never encountered anything like this or heard any stories about it. So the nurse came and she said, she checked in on me. They sent a Norwegian nurse because they figured I was going to bond with her being Swedish. And she says, did anything unusual happen yesterday in the ER? And she's fishing because obviously she was aware of these things called near-death experience, which means you left your body, you went somewhere, and then you came back. And I was petrified. I said, if I'm telling her anything, they're going to lock me up in the psych ward. Like they're going to think I'm a lunatic. I was petrified because I didn't have a belief system in place to support my own experience.
I mean, even
So
today they wouldn't take to it
right,
well, but let alone like way back when
right,
as well. It's yeah.
right. So I'm sure she was aware of it because she was fishing for it, right? And I said, no, no, nothing happened. Nothing unusual happened. So then they sent me home. And so then they sent me home, and then I got really sick. It took me forever to get well because the first thing they were going to do was give me a blood transfusion. And I begged with the doctor in the ER as he's yelling at me to not even move my head because he was so afraid he was going to lose me again. And I said, do you have to give me blood? And he said, well, do you have a religious belief that you can't take blood? And I said, no, but everybody that's getting a blood transfusion, are getting AIDS because it was 1992 and we didn't know much about that back then. So he said, we'll see what we can do. And I was 34 at the time and I was super healthy otherwise. So they monitored how quickly I made the blood. And he said, well, okay, you're not going to feel too good for, a couple of months, but you're strong and healthy otherwise. So we're going to give you all the supplements and medications, and who knows what they gave me. No idea. And I pretty much slept for a month or two. Very little memories because I had so little blood in my head. I couldn't keep my head on a pillow. My head was just pounding. My hands and feet were ice cold. Um, Even though it was July in California. So, I was under wool blankets because I had so little blood in my body. I could not walk from the bedroom to the living room without almost passing out. So it took a long time. It took me like 3 months until I could sit up in a rocking chair. And then it took me another 3 months before I could just like start walking, 2 houses to the left, 2 houses to the right. And that would just wear me out. And then around Christmas, we all got sick. So we all got the flu. And this whole year, we didn't have any medical insurance because this is the United States. And my husband's company had gotten bought and everybody got laid off. And so here in the United States, when you get a new job, now you have a 3-month wait period before your insurance will activate. So we were constantly on this wait, and he took it after 3 months, he got a better offer with another company. So then he took that job. And this happened 3 times, of course, in this year. So we did not have insurance for an entire year. We got insurance July 1st, 1993. So during this time, we got sick. We go to the walk-in clinic. We pay cash for that visit. And we all had pneumonia. We all got antibiotics. And then everybody got well except for me. I got sicker and sicker. So after 8 days, I went back and they took my blood. And then they said, you're way too sick. Like you were just here. What's going on? There's something else about you. So they took my blood. They came back in their room and they said, okay, you have no immune system at all. Okay. Do you have leukemia or AIDS? And I said, well, I hope neither. And I told them I hadn't taken the blood transfusion and I was just, finally able to stand up and even go to the walk-in clinic, right? And they said, you're way too sick. You have to go to the ER right now. And I said, no, I am not going to the ER because I don't have insurance. And they said, you have to go anyway. And I said, I'm not going to go. And man, somehow, whatever they gave me, the medications, the next day they called and they said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm a little bit better. So somehow I managed to get out of that. And then by the spring, so this is 9 months after I gave birth, I started getting bruises. And so this is what it was like a bone marrow suppression. So it wasn't leukemia, which you can also bruise from, but my bone marrow wasn't making blood. And this is something that can happen to somebody who's just pregnant. You can get what's called idiopathic aplastic anemia. And it's a suppression of the bone marrow. So you're not making enough red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. So I was bruising because I didn't have enough platelets, and I was getting sick. I was getting pneumonia all the time because I didn't have any white blood cells. And then I was anemic because I didn't have enough red blood cells. So I lived in this state for a few years where I was constantly feeling like my soul was leaving, jumping out of my body, partly because I had this bone marrow suppression, and partly maybe because my soul didn't merge back. It didn't merge back in my body properly or something. So then while I'm really sick, so this is 2 years later, I have a second near-death experience. And I always feel like it had to be this way because, number one, they saved me too quickly. So I didn't get the full effect. I didn't get to learn what it was I was supposed to learn from this experience. The first experience I learned that I was outside my body. And then the second experience happens in the middle of the night and I'm really sick. And this is just my life at this point. I wake up, my head is pounding. I feel dizzy. I have to, put my head down constantly. So in the middle of the night, I just get pulled out of my body. And I go to this place that I call the mid station because I get to this level. That's what I'm going to call it. It's like you go into a skyscraper, you push the button on the 50th floor, and there's stories above you. There's 50 floors up and 50 floors down, or 49 down, right? You're on the 50th floor, and you know that there's more floors in this building. You don't know what's on the floors because you're on the 50th floor. And it was that kind of a sensation where I get to this place, but I know it's a level. And there is this awareness that you could go higher and you could go lower. So I call it a bouncing station, that this floor that I ended up on is the bouncing station because I got sent back. Because I've heard other people say that, they went to this place and then they had a choice. And the people they met said, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And look at all the fun things that are going to happen. And then they said, okay, I don't want to miss that. I'm going to go back. I didn't get a choice. Okay. They was just, what are you doing here? So I
Right,
get to
you
this.
didn't, because yeah, even the first
Yeah,
time
right.
round,
So
you
it's like
didn't
a
really get
bounce.
a
I call it. It's
choice.
like
Yeah.
it's like a bouncing station. They're like, you're not supposed to be here.
Inspired Souls, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. Everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel, and I cannot thank you enough. And to all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. All it takes is hitting that subscribe button below. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. So go and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. Support us in championing love, positivity, wisdom, and wellness around the planet. Thank you so much in advance for doing so.
So I get to this place though, and the first thing that happens is that I hear the most beautiful music. You cannot make this music on the earth plane because I tried. I sat by our synthesizer for like a week, tried every single sound. I'm sure it was over 200 sounds. Could not find it. I'm still searching for the sound. I have not found it yet. Um, it doesn't matter, what I do. I listen to other people who have heard the music. It's close. It's not it, but the earthly music is not as beautiful as that music. And people who have heard the music all say the same thing. It is more beautiful than our earthly music. So I hear this beautiful music and I'm saying, where is this coming from? So I look to my right and I see this little log cabin. It literally looks like a Swedish sauna. It's my best description. It's just a little log cabin. And I'm looking inside. I open the door, I look inside and I say, it's empty. The music is not coming from there. So I look to the left. I see the same, like a mirror image of the log cabin on my right. I open the door, I look inside, but it's empty. And then I become aware of this growing light, almost like a fog that's rolling in with a spotlight on it. But I get completely surrounded by the brightest, whitest light. I've also searched for images of that brightest, but there isn't anything that comes close, right? Because we're in the earthly realm. So this is like a different existence and different colors. And people that see colors, they say, the colors up there are more beautiful than the colors here, right? And this is the same thing. The brightest, whitest light is the more bright and more white than the lights that we have here. So I turn around into this light, but in this light, in this fog light, which is just everywhere, there is an outline of angels in the light, and the music is coming from the angels. But I am also completely aware of the fact that I don't believe in angels. So, it's because I'm so scientific and I'm so stubborn in a way, because I think I had to experience things that I truly did not believe in. Because if I had a belief in angels or the spirit world, then I would just have said, oh, it's just my mind. It's a hallucination. Of course, I'm going to experience that because that was my belief system. So it's really interesting, right? It's almost like the spirit world had to prove to me, right? It's not in your head because we're going to show you things that you don't believe in, right? So it's really interesting because if I had heard somebody else tell the story, my old self before my own experiences would have been, of course, you're going to experience that. That's your belief system, right? So I came from that. I'm very scientific underneath all of this. But in that, the light itself is like God or source, whatever you want to call it. Religion doesn't matter because religion is something we made here on earth for our different cultures on the earth itself and people that were, inspired or had spiritual experiences, right? And we put this, we have changed religions a lot, right? Christianity is very patriarchal, but originally we actually worship the goddesses, but then that was taken out of the scripture. So when you go back a long time, you see that it was very different. So that's why I say a lot of the religion is man-made, because people along the way have altered it and decided what gets translated and put in these texts of religion. So the light, is, I just call it source, because we're all in the same boat here. We're all human. We're all here on earth having an earthly experience. But that light, that is what we come from. That is who we are. We carry this light within us. That is pure unconditional love. And that's who we are. We come from that. We return to that. When we leave this earth, we go back to this, glorious, loving place, right? But if it's not your time, you're not going to get to go there, because I think we all have, we came to learn things, and sometimes things are hard, but we still have to, put one foot in front of the other. So as I'm in this light and I'm experiencing this unconditional love, I become aware of two spirit guides. And the one on the right says to the other one in front of me, says, "What is she doing here? She can't be here. She has to go back," which is why I call it the bouncing station. And I'm like, wait a second. No, no, no. How does this work? How can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? Right? Because it's been 2 years already trying to figure out my first near-death experience. And I've, almost given up, like, it's just hallucination. It's just crazy. So now I'm having the second experience. And the spirit guide that's diagonally to the left in front of me says, "If I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this." And then it's like all of a sudden, it's like I'm standing on the moon. And I think that, like images sort of just appear. It's just, everything is just magical. Think of it that way. It's like all of a sudden there's a flat screen in front of you or a movie screen, and you're seeing all these things, right? So it's like I'm standing on the moon and I'm looking down on the earth. But around the earth, there is this, like what I call the silvery, glittery fishnet, because I grew up in Sweden rowing the boat from my grandmother, laying fishnets in the ocean to catch fish for the family. And those are diamond shaped, the fishnets. So when you lift the fishnet out of the water in the early morning sun, all those little water droplets sort of glitter in the sun, in the sunlight. So I'm seeing this grid around the earth that sort of has this sparkly nodes on it. And I called it the fishnet because it had that diamond shape, because we could not Google grid around the earth in the 1994. We didn't have Google yet. So I searched libraries high and low for anything that could tell me what is this grid around the earth, so that I called it fishnet. Never found anything. So anyway, so this spirit guide says everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And with that knowledge, I got sent back. And that really hasn't made sense until maybe about 10 years ago. So it took me like 25 years to really start understanding what that interconnection means. But so that is my work. We're going to get into this later about the ancestral healing, because we are all connected, right? We're all connected via DNA. You come from your parents. You get 50% of your mom's DNA, 50% of dad's DNA. Well, a lot of things are in there. Your eye color, your hair color, your skin color, your, different disease gene markers and things like that, right? Then you have your epigenetics. Your epigenetics is your software that sits on top of your DNA or your genetics and decides whether it's going to actually let some of those genes express or not, right? So that's like the software on your computer. So just because you carry a gene, right? Let's say you carry a cancer gene, it doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. You might be, if you have the perfect soup to make that happen, yes, but your epigenetics is going to have to turn that on. So if you're also then exposed to environmental toxins and you have pneumonia and you get the flu and you have a lot of stress, and then you might turn that marker on, right? But just because we have a genetic marker doesn't mean we're going to get it. So all these different experiences of having these two experiences and understanding how interconnected we are then led me to understand how we are all connected to our ancestors, whether they're in the spirit world or whether they're here. But, this being connected via DNA is just one component. Then we're also connected via quantum physics, right? Because everything is connected in quantum physics. And then we also have our own experiences of what we experienced in our own life. So, life is not just one thing. It's just like saying how somebody has cancer and they drink carrot juice or celery juice and they get well. Well, that's great that that worked for that person. It doesn't mean it's going to work for their neighbor or their cousin, because for them, they incarnated to get cured by chemotherapy. And the third cancer patient is going to get cured by solving their ancestral trauma, right? We don't know what we all incarnated for. So, we have to take into account all the different things that impact us in all different ways.
My goodness, this net, we've discussed this before on a previous podcast. You do liken it to Indra's net, right? Like this, can I draw those parallels?
Yes, absolutely. So, Indra's net is how interconnected we are. And every thought, every action, everything that you do is going to have a ripple effect out into the universe. So it's like Indra's net is basically that grid that I was shown around the earth, because everything is connected through Indra's net. So it's an old Buddhist teaching, Indra's net. But everything, we are, like a mirror to everybody else. So we are connected now because we're sitting here talking. So everybody that I'm sort of connected to them through you, right? Your family, because I know you. So in quantum physics, we know that, if one of the pairs go off, then the other pairs that they used to be connected to are also connected now, and that's like you and I met, but now you're connected via me to my children or to my friends, to my dog that's sleeping in the basket next to me, right? So because we're all connected through quantum entanglement, right? And that's, it's all exciting because we're learning more and more about how everything is connected. But ultimately, when you look at the world through this lens, we also understand how interconnected we are with where we came from, how were you raised by your mom and dad. All right, we'll talk a little bit about the ancestral part, where you were raised a certain way by your mother, but the way you were raised, let's say you have 5 siblings, all of these kids in your family all had a different mother, even though it was the same mother physically. But that mother was in a different place when she had each of those 5 children, right? So let's say she has her first child when she's 19. She's young, she might be poor, she's running away from home, she's get kicked out of the house because she got pregnant, right? Then she finds somebody else. She has another child when she's 23. She has another child when she's 25. And then she gets married, she gets a job, she gets an education. She has 2 more kids 10 years later. She is a completely different mother for all of those kids because she is in a different developmental stage herself. So that's going to impact who you are, right, as a child. And that's why you often hear in families, my sister, one child loves mom, the next child hates mom. Because the mom was a different person. And then you're dealing with the personality of each person as well. But we do inherit things from our mom. And a lot of the issues that we struggle with during our life comes from mom. So the way we were raised, the way we were treated, the issues that she might not have been able to resolve during her life, well, whatever was sort of swept under the carpet, that's what comes back. That's what gets passed down. All the traumatic experiences or things she wasn't able to resolve, that's going to get passed down to the next generation. And it's subconscious. So, our conscious mind is like the tip of the iceberg, and then the subconscious is that big mountain underneath the water, right? So the subconscious mind tunes into all of these things as we grow up, and we know, many times with, mom says we don't talk about grandpa, we don't talk about this person. We know that there's an issue there, right? Every family has people that we don't talk about, I swear. Because even people say, oh, I came from a really loving family. I love my mom. I love my dad. They were like perfect. I already know that you have a mother wound because there's just different layers to that mother wound, right? If you think that your mom was perfect, I used to say that myself, so I totally get it. Because there's certain things that happen. I've had many clients say, we're like a Leave It to Beaver family. Like, I love my mom. I don't have a mother wound. And I'm like, okay, tell me about your relationship with your partner. Do you feel seen and heard by your partner, or do you feel like you're doing everything? Oh, well, my partner's really nice and everything, but yeah, no, he doesn't really see me or he doesn't really hear me. And of course, yeah, I do most of the chores and there's no division of labor or anything like that. Well, how were you raised? How did you earn your love from your mother when you were a child? Right. And so now the wheels start turning and they say, well, you know, I would set the table, I would help with the dishes, I would clean my room, I would do all these different chores, right? You earn the love from your mother through the tasks that you did. Some people will say, I got a good grade in school. If I didn't get a good grade, then I wouldn't get the love. So when we start taking a look at, how did we earn that love? Because a child loves the parent unconditionally, whether they like, whether it's a nice parent or not a nice parent, the child is dependent on that parent. You're 2 years old. You want to go to sleep and you want to get some food and you want to get some love. But so we have unconditional love for our parents, even if they're not nice. And it's that unconditional love that will do anything for the parent to earn the love, to get the love. And so a child figures out what to do in all these different situations to get that love and support that they need. So then we grow up, right? And we have so many different issues, right? People struggle with anxiety, not feeling seen and heard. They could be OCD, it could be physical disease, it could be alcohol, any kind of addiction. Almost any struggles we have, the first thing you do is you look at where did you come from, who was your mom? Because a lot of our issues, even we have relationship problems. They go back to mom. What was mom's problem, or what was it that she couldn't resolve, and now we're carrying some of that burden typically.
This podcast is brought to you by my one-to-one mentorship. The podcast is designed to inspire your evolution onwards, upwards, and inwards. And if you're ready to dive in even deeper and evolve your career, your leadership, and business in a conscious direction, and you believe that alignment to your purpose and your soul's direction is the only way to truly thrive into your highest potential, and right now you can feel that guidance, mentoring, and coaching would be of support, then my one-to-one mentorship, coupled with our incredible conscious group masterminds, is here for you. Thousands of people have evolved through my mentoring over the last 10 years. It is, after all, my highest calling, and here's what they have to say about how it's transformed their life.
It's a blend of what I would call hustle and magic.
I really felt like a brother who I could reach out to when I was in need.
Suddenly things take least effort and I see multiple opportunities.
He's not sugarcoating, he's not looking at things with rosy glasses. He asks the hard questions which we need to have asked.
He made me feel like there's someone who believes in me. That connection is much more profound than just being coached.
If you truly believe in the potential that you have as a human being, you would definitely invest in coaching.
So if you're ready to dive in even deeper to take your inspirations and truly evolve, then make your way over to my website at amritsandhu.com. I'll put a link in the description below. You don't have to go it alone. There's one-to-one mentoring and an incredible community mastermind of conscious leaders, entrepreneurs, and people transforming their careers and business into full alignment with their soul's highest calling, creating a life that inspires them on the deepest level, living into their greatest impact. And as many of you know, connection is my highest value, so I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Use the button below, use the link below, amritsandhu.com/call. That's AMRIT Sandhu, SANDHU.com/call. It's on screen for you now. And if you follow that link, you'll be able to book in a call directly with me. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. So go on. I'll see you there. Yeah.
You're thinking now, do I have a mother wound?
No. I'm plenty aware that we all carry mother wounds. As a coach, it's hard to ignore. I mean, I often end up asking the question, is that your mother or your father speaking to you in your subconscious at times? But the point I was going to allude to as well is because we were talking before you started diving in around quantum entanglement and intranet and the interconnectedness of our ancestors. And I think there's this really profound piece for me that dropped into my awareness, and maybe you can help correct it if it is wrong. When your mother's born or being born in her mother's womb is when all your mother's eggs are already set for the children she's going to have.
Yes. Yeah.
Is
So
that
your
correct?
mom, so your mom made the egg that you came from when she was a 20-week-old fetus in your grandmother's womb. So when you ask yourself, what was grandma's life like when mom was a 20-week-old fetus in her womb, right? Because that's going to impact how those eggs were formed. So it's interesting because so many things we think that it's just our eye color, skin color, and things like that we get from the DNA. But we know now that we actually inherit trauma on the DNA. So we've done, there's some research studies out that show they did a lot of studies on the Holocaust survivors and some of the genes. One of the genes is FKBP5. Forget the other genes, but they have identified actual genes, then they can see the change that happens. So the grandchildren have a different kind of gene. It's expressing differently than it did for the grandparents. And it's really interesting because what happens, so the grandfather, right? So we think about how many of our ancestors served in the war, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us have family members that have served in the war. So he survives the war, but he got really good at taking cover and taking shelter every time he heard a siren. So the flights are coming in, they're going to bomb, and he took shelter. So what happens is that's going to get passed down now. So his offspring are now primed to have more anxiety around loud sirens. So you might have a grandchild that gets panic attacks every time they hear an ambulance or a fire truck, right? And they can hear the sirens and they get a panic attack, but they have never had a traumatic experience themselves. They've never been in a car accident or in a fire or anything. They don't have a traumatic experience that they have lived through where the sirens came, right? Or heard the sirens. So it's coming from somewhere else. But then when you look at your ancestors, right? So if you have a panic attack when you hear a siren, well, which one of your ancestors served in the war? Or which one of your ancestors had that experience and is an unresolved traumatic event, right? So, and it gets passed down. And it's interesting because when you think of the genetic changes that happen or the epigenetics happen, because we prime our offspring, and we have research studies that show, like they've done mice studies where they gave there was a great study that was done by Emory University School of Medicine, and it was published in Nature Neuroscience back like in 2013. And they did this study on mice, and they exposed the male mice to a cherry blossom smell. And every time they smelled the cherry blossom smell, they would get a little electric shock. And so the mice, of course, learns that, cherry blossom smell means electric shock. So then they took the sperm of that mice, they artificially inseminated the female mice that had never experienced the cherry blossom smell or the electric shock. Well, those baby mice were, very jumpy and scared of the cherry blossom smell, even though they had never received the shock, because the male mice, they transferred it in the sperm over to the baby mice. So when you think of, right, it's really crazy because you think of that behavior or that fear, yeah, stay away from the cherry blossom smell, that might kill you, right? And so that got transferred down to the baby mice. So when you think of that, it's not that different from us. So they're finding these gene markers and how the trauma is actually passed down through the generations of the Holocaust survivors. So the things that they experienced. So there are, studies that, things that they experienced, like starvation. Well, that changed one of the enzymes in their body. And so they had a higher value of this one enzyme, but their offspring had a lower expression of that enzyme, which made them actually more prone to any kind of like metabolic type disease, heart disease, diabetes, and things like that. because the grandparents survived that. They went through extreme starvation. So, these things change, and they can change, in just a generation or two, because we're wired for survival in the end. And so what our ancestors experience, all those traumatic events, is going to affect us, even though we think it's not. Right. So maybe the ancestor had to run really fast in order to survive. He became a really good sprinter, and now the grandkids are great athletes. Right. I mean, it's interesting how things like that show up.
For me, this is, and I'm conscious I should be interviewing you, but there's these really, like, this is landing for me really deeply at the moment, because I went away and did one of those Ancestry23, Ancestry.com tests. And we, since, yeah. So I think we've got the Ancestry.com one. And so we've partnered with them because this has been really profound for myself. And and you can take the raw data, and then I found a couple of online tools, which I've been using to then analyze, like, instead of the data. Like, it was really interesting to see sort of my lineage and roots from Ancestry.com. Like, that was fun. And also some people can contact you and get in touch, which, however you are about that. But then also taking the data, the raw data, and looking at, like, it from a health perspective is really profound. One of the things I went ahead and did was just run it through this analysis, and it sort of shows you which of the main genes are potentially recessive on both sides and which is recessive on just one side. And yeah, like, I don't want to sound completely broken, but I had 4 that were recessive on one side or the other, and 2 that were recessive on both sides. And one of them was the MTHFR gene, which is how you process, like you would be familiar with, like methylation. Yeah. And apparently 60% of the population struggle with that. And then there's the other one, which was MAO, which is all about dopamine and serotonin. And so watching both of those, and it was so, I'm just taking a bit of airtime here, so pardon me for that. But one of the interesting things that dropped in for me was I, Dr. Lottie, have been taking a multivitamin every morning for, like, as long as I could. Like, we're talking decades, yeah? I've been taking a multivitamin. Like, I wake up, I take a multivitamin. Like, it's just something you do for your health and your wellness. You stay tip-top, And I looked at my multivitamin after doing this MTHF, and it turns out my body doesn't process folic acid very well, right? Like, it comes in, and it's almost like, instead of it being something my body takes in, it's like, oh, more of that stuff that I don't really know how to process. And so then it makes me cloudy, clogged, and all this sort of stuff. And so I started then looking at, like, all the different breads that have folic acid, and I was like, oh my God, every single bread in the supermarket has and they've just added it to it for some reason. It's not even like it was in there. It's just like they've chosen to add it in to sort of fortify the bread with, like, folic acid, which is, anyway, I'm looking at my multivite, and it's got this folic acid thing in there, and I'm like, dude, my multivitamin has folic acid in there as a supplement for me. And so then I took the data, and some people have an interesting relationship with ChatGPT, but I took the data and started saying, hey, like, to ChatGPT, and said, hey, what are the right supplements that I should be taking based on this? And it started picking out, like, pre-methylated or methylated forms of folate and stuff like that. And I've been on this protocol for a good week now, and I don't really know how to describe. It sounds like I'm selling this, touchwood, but it's legitimately, like, I feel way younger. I feel like it's weird going, oh, I was walking around in a haze. I'd forgotten what baseline normal could be different. And I just put it down to parenting. Like, I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I'm like, just, a little bit tired, a little bit wired all the time. And it's like, wow, like, now I'm cleaning the garage, I'm getting things sorted, I'm getting things done. And it's profound. The whole reason I share that with you is it's a profound, because I think we hear people talking about genes and the mice studies and it's like, oh yeah, like 7 generations up, 7 generations down, cows and electric fences. Like, we hear it. But where we are right now in this conversation, for me, it's really settling in, like, kind of this gene conversation is really palpable and really profound in terms of what we carry and how to work with that. And I mean, I stopped taking a multivitamin. I started feeling better. Makes no sense.
Because you have an MTHFR mutation.
Right?
So people say, right? People who have an MTHFR mutation, they take a normal multivitamin and they feel terrible because they can't process that. They can't process it. So they have to get special vitamin, just you're like exactly methylated. They just get the separate folate, right? And then they get the separate B vitamin.
Yeah.
But the regular like cobalamin and the regular B vitamins, they don't do well with them. They need a special B12 vitamin, like like adenosyl hydroxylate, I think it's called.
But
It's a different form, and then they do great when they get that. But if they do the regular B12 vitamin, they feel terrible. So they take a multivitamin, right? And they feel terrible.
One of the Bs I was taking was like executive stress B.
Right.
This is causing more stress in your system.
Yes.
Like, do you know what I mean? And this is how fundamental that gene story is. Hey there, guys. As you can tell, we're discussing Ancestry.com and your ancestral roots. And we discussed a little bit around wellness as well. And it's how much of a game changer it's been to take that data from Ancestry.com to understand my health and wellness and then apply that through some online tools. I'll put a link. We've partnered with Ancestry.com for you to be able to get your results at a discounted rate. So if you use that link in the description below, that'll take you there. And also a couple of links to the places where I go to get those wellness results. They're online and they're also completely free. So you can access those, and that'll give you not just your ancestry DNA information, but then also this health and wellness gene conversation that we're having here with Dr. Lottie. And hopefully that'll help you and support you on your wellness path as well as your ancestry. Links in the description below. So I wanted to just give a moment to really ground in the gene conversation in this conversation for a moment. And then the question I really want to ask you is, some people have a really good relationship with their mother. Some people have a challenging relationship with their mother. You mentioned earlier that regardless, you're kind of carrying a mother wound, yeah, in many ways. And you alluded earlier that there's like attention is part of this, right? But how do you define the mother wound, right? Like, how, like, because what's the shape of it? What's the nature of it? You know, like psychological, energetic, like spiritually, like what is this mother wound that you're referring to?
Right. So a mother wound is any issue that you're facing, any struggle that you have that comes from your mom. So that could be, it could be you're having problems in your relationship. You don't feel seen and heard in your relationship. Take a look at your mom. You have OCD, you have anxiety, you have physical disease. What is it that you have tuned into that your mom could not resolve, right? So many times we carry the issues that mom couldn't resolve, or we repeat the issues that mom struggled with. It has a way of making its way back into our life, the things that, and even the things we didn't like about mom. So if there's something you didn't like about your mom, you might have found a partner that actually has that very trait that you didn't like in your mom. Because we have a way of inviting things back into our life. And then we wonder why things aren't running smoothly. Why is it that I'm having these different struggles in a relationship? Or you might not have enough confidence. You might get your promotion gets passed up at work. Somebody else gets the promotion, right? And a lot of these issues goes back to what we call the mother wound, because it actually comes from your mom. So either you might be repeating an issue that she had. Mom didn't have any confidence, so you don't have any confidence. So because you tune into your mom, because you have that unconditional love for mom when you're little, and so you kind of say, your little tiny brain when you're 2 years old says, I know you're struggling, mom. I know that you don't feel, let's say mom doesn't have a college degree. Mom is super nice and loving and nurturing. She's like the best mom, but she doesn't have a college degree. All her friends have college degrees. So when you're little, you tune into that and you say, I see you, mom, because you're 3 years old, and you can see, your mom. You know your mom inside out, right? You know when to ask for ice cream and when not to ask for ice cream when you're little, right? You're going to tell all your siblings, not now. It's going to be a no. Don't ask her, right? Kids know these things, right? They're very clever. They know exactly the mood you're in, right? Doesn't matter if it's mom or dad. Kids know the mood you're in. And so we tune in as children, we tune into that. And so when you're little and you say, hey, mom, I see you. I see that you don't feel confident because all your friends have college degree and I can see you're struggling right now. Meanwhile, your mom is putting on a show being, her charming self, and she's not thinking, but you feel that she doesn't have any confidence because you're a child. You know your mom. But what happens, your subconscious mind says, I see you, mom. I can see you don't have any confidence. Don't worry. I got this. I'm going to help you carry this through life. Then you grow up. And then now you are struggling with this self-confidence. Might be at work, might be giving presentations, might be, even though I've had people who are successful lawyers, successful psychotherapists, successful doctors, like they have all these degrees. Guess what? They're struggling with that. They have like what's called imposter syndrome. So they feel like, right, somebody's going to find me out. I'm not as good as people think, right? They're tuning into that. What is the first thing I ask them? Tell me about your mom. And then it comes out, my mom was so nice. She cooked the best tacos and blah, 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 blah. She took care of everybody. Okay, tell me about, did she have confidence? No, she didn't have any good self-confidence. She didn't have a degree. So it doesn't matter that that child then goes on and gets a PhD or becomes very successful. They're still tuned into mom. But once you realize that, wait a second, this is not mine. This is my mom. I've tuned into my mom. And then once you have that realization, you can let go of it. But it's the same for almost any struggle we have. It doesn't matter if it's physical, spiritual, emotional, doesn't matter what it is, because most of our issues stem from a mother wound, or that is the first place you are going to look. If you struggle with anything, you're going to look at your mom first. And then once you have resolved your mother wounds, then other things will start to surface. And then you might have to go, further out and look at other people. But whenever you have a struggle, where do you start? You look at where you came from. You spent 9 months in that womb, in your mom's womb. You know your mom inside out from the day you're born. And a lot of our struggles come from that, but they're sort of hidden. Unless you had a mom that, was an alcoholic, or she struggled with drugs, or she might have been, not the best mom in one way or another, right? And you crave that love and support and you never got it. Then you kind of, the writing is on the wall. You know that you didn't have a good mom. You didn't have a good relationship. Your mom never listened to you. She wasn't there for you. You have a mother wound. But sometimes when people have a mom and they say, my mom was really loving. She was so nurturing. She was so nice. The mother wound is hidden under the surface. And then typically the struggles are typically, I'm not being seen. I'm not being heard. I don't feel seen and heard in my relationship. They don't feel, like their partner might not see them or hear them or listen to them. They might feel like they're the ones doing all the work. And that's a typical wound when you have like a very nice and nurturing mom. So sometimes the wounds are hidden. So we think that our struggles are not coming from a mother wound. But when you take a look at it and you start going deep into that, it kind of comes to the surface and you say, wait a second, now I see it. But once you see it, guess what? Now you can heal it. It doesn't matter what it is, right? But once we understand how we got in that position in the first place, we can sort of unravel that thread and create healing for that and release it. So in this course, Healing Your Mother Wound and Rewriting Your Emotional and Energetic Blueprint, I have an online course, a self-study course that is actually 7 hours long. I take people through all the way from the beginning. What are the different ways a mother wound is going to show up in your life? How could it show up? What is a mother wound? How do I have a mother wound? Right. And then I take you through all the different steps and have you, I take you through this whole path where I say, now it's time for you to start working, after I give you some foundational understanding of what a mother wound is. Then I guide people through the different modules of resolving their own mother wounds. So it could be any issue. I don't care what the issue is. And then I do a lot of what I call shamanic meditation journeys. So this course is very integrative. So like people have called me what do they call me? They say I'm like one of the most integrative ancestral healers of our time. That's what have been referred to as, because I have the medical knowledge, I have the medical understanding, I have the scientific understanding. But then I had my near-death experiences, which made me a medium, and I work spiritually with people, and I connect with the spirit world, I connect with the spirit guides, right? And I do a lot of work like that for people. And that's what ultimately led me into studying ancestral healing, which is a form of counseling. But so I've integrated all my knowledge. So I take you on what I call shamanic meditation journeys, where it's guided meditations, but it helps uncover and heal the different wounds that you carry. So I take you through these 19 modules, a 7-hour course, and teach you how to find your own mother wounds and how to heal them and how to release them. So, and the way I got into it, right, because I'm also a medium, so I'm an evidential psychic medium. I studied mediumship at Arthur Findlay College, and that was after I graduated from med school. But I also connect with the spirit guides. So it was actually doing mediumship readings that I started seeing the patterns within the families of how grandpa, grandma comes in and she has a tough life. Grandpa was abusive in some way. And then the client's mother would marry somebody just like her father, repeated the pattern. And then the client also repeated the pattern. And so we see how the patterns are passed down through the generations. And that's how I originally actually got into studying ancestral healing as a form of counseling. But then now I have merged it with, a true blend of science and spirituality, where I have merged my spiritual knowledge and understanding that interconnectedness of Indra's net and how we all literally are a light or a star sitting on this grid, right? And the healing that we do for ourselves, because we're all connected, like with Indra's net, when you create healing for yourself and you do that self-work, things shift within the family. And I had the most remarkable stories of, I worked with a lady just a few weeks ago that I hadn't worked with in a year. And she did, the whole mother wound course. Like, we took her through that. We created healing. And she hadn't spoken to her mom in like 10 years at that time. So I worked with her a few weeks ago, and she said, after I did that whole mother wound healing, I talk to my mom every day now. And she has, even though she had gone through a divorce since then, and mom even helps her financially now, it went from not having spoken to mom in 10 years to talking to mom every day. I've had other clients tell me, a couple of clients, a common issue is they've been disconnected from their children. So they haven't spoken to one of their kids for, 3 years, 5 years. And there's complete disconnect. And they do the mother wound healing. And guess what happens? Out of the blue, this child calls them and says, "Hey, mom, how you doing? Just thought I'd check in." And I get these emails, right, from people who have done the healing. But that is the magic. That is Indra's net. That is who we are. We are all connected to each other. When somebody does the healing, when you do the healing for yourself, not that I can prove it, but I'm going to say your frequency changes. There's something that changes within us when we go through and we do this healing. And that, because we're all connected via quantum physics, and like Indra's net, or however you want to look at it, we're all connected to each other. That is going to resonate. That signal is being sent out, right? Just like you pick up the phone at the same time you call your best friend, you call your partner, you're picking up the phone, you're thinking of each other at the same time. You might all of a sudden think of a friend you haven't had any connection with for 3 years, and all of a sudden you think of that person, and then the next day they message you on a social media platform, right? What is that? That's quantum physics. We're all connected. We feel that connection with other people, and we do this all the time, but we just kind of, oh, how funny, like that person just connected with me, I thought of them yesterday. It's not a coincidence, right? You sent that signal out, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. That person says, hey, I feel you, and then connects out, right? But it's the same when we create healing. We create healing for ourselves. That's going to impact everybody around you. It's going to impact your children, your partner, the people, your ancestors in the spirit world. We're all connected. It doesn't matter if they're in the spirit world or here on earth. because we're all connected to that. And I've often sent healing to the spirit world, and I have a funny story because I went to Arthur Findlay College when I studied mediumship. I've been there many times. But one of the trips I took there, I had just sent healing to like my mom or dad. And I had a reading with one of the teachers, and the teacher said, okay, your mom is here and your dad is here. And they said, you just sent healing to them like a week ago. And I said, yeah, I did. And they said they're very thankful for the healing because they feel it on the other side. So, because when you're outside your body, like I was outside my body twice, I'm still me when I'm outside my body. I'm still completely me, right? I'm just outside. I just don't have this bodysuit on, but I'm still me, right? And when you think of, the way I look at it, it's like we come into earth, we put this bodysuit on. I'm going to be this person in this life. But who I am, it doesn't matter what bodysuit I'm wearing. I'm wearing a female bodysuit in this life, right? And this is what I incarnated to have my life in this bodysuit for the lessons I'm here to learn this time. But then we go to the spirit world, we come back, got a different bodysuit, right? And we know this from, all the people who remember I remember past lives too. But like there are kids that come in that, literally solve murders and say, I was murdered in the past life. My body is buried over here, right? They remember, right? And there's just typical ages. And I think Netflix made a whole series of some of these incredible stories of children remembering their past lives. So we obviously cycle back and we come back in, but I think we come in soul families many times. We have new people that join our soul family. And then, because there's, some of these kids say, don't you remember that, I was your grandmother in the past life? And then like, oh, never mind. You don't remember, Mom. Right. But we have so many of these stories now, and they're quite fascinating. So we come back, we circulate, we come back as, in this life, I'm this soul. But when you think about the souls the family you incarnated in, who's playing what role in this life? I'm going to say it's like a movie script. We're up there going, okay, let's do this life together this time. Okay, I'm going to be the grandpa. I'm going to be the dad. I'm going to be the kid. And then we come in and we have no memories of this great master plan. But I think there is a bigger meaning of life than we think it is. Because when you look, I've been told that in my astrological chart, I had more near-death experiences than the two, because I've had astrologers say, I can see that you had more. You just don't remember those. I didn't get to remember that. And I think, why do some of us remember the near-death experience? Some people are dead for like 3-4 minutes in a heart attack, and they don't remember anything. They're just like, no, it was just black. But I'm going to say it wasn't part of for them to have memories of that in this life, because that would just mess up their incarnation and what they came to learn. I needed to remember that because of the work I'm here to do. I had to have that memory of that, right? And go through that. I had to be sick and all those things. And literally, it's all in my astrological chart. The day of my first near-death experience, all the planets were lined up in a specific way. And I've been told that it had happened that day, because I went to the ER 2 days earlier. I got sent home. So it wasn't supposed to happen that day. It was supposed to happen on the day that it happened, because that's what I've been told. All the planets were lined up in a very specific way. And I was told that the way the planets lined up, literally I had to have an out-of-body experience to remind myself why I came to the earth this time and what my work is on earth this time. And it's fascinating because I don't really know astrology. I'm just relying on people that read my chart. But it's interesting that I've had several people tell me this, because that means that everything is in your chart in the end. And a lot of the main events are in my chart. I had one astrologer tell me, oh, and then I said, and I was sick for so many years. And they looked at my chart and they go, yeah, and you got well when you were 44? And I was like, yeah, I did. It was like magic. And they're like, yeah, that's when you paid off your past life karma. So, when you think about it, I mean, it was a perfect life, right? I'd have 2 near-death experiences. I had to be sick for almost, really sick for 6 years. And then another 6 years when I thought I was never going to be normal again. And then all of a sudden, it was like, wow, I'm normal. I can do anything I want now. I never thought that was going to happen. but it was part of that incarnation. Because when you think about it, I had to have the experience for the work I'm here to do, and I had to have the near-death experience for the work I'm here to do. But at the same time, I also paid off my past life karma by being sick. So that worked out. It was like an extra bonus point. But when you think about all the different things that happen, even the bad things, right? I didn't want to be sick. I didn't like any of those things. That took me forever. For 6 years, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't take my kids to the playground. I could barely go to the grocery store, right? I had to just sit down in the grocery store. I would have people come up to me and say, "You're completely pale. Are you going to pass out?" And I'm like, "No, I got 30 seconds." And I would have to sit down on the floor in the grocery store, put my head down, because I couldn't even walk to the back of the grocery store and back to the front without almost passing out. So I had so little blood, right, in my body for 6 years. I lived that life. And then for the next 6 years, I could go to the grocery store without having to sit down and put my head down, but was definitely not normal. But then eventually that all of a sudden just cleared. But it's very interesting because people tell me they can see it in my chart. We all have, we all incarnated to have a path and to learn things in this life. But also, right, for everything that we create healing for, we heal ourselves, but we also heal other people. Because whatever we don't resolve, I'm going to say that gets passed on. So if I incarnated to solve 10 problems and I only solve 8, I only heal 8, 2 of them is going to get passed down, right, to my kids. They're going to take the other 2. So I always feel like the more we can heal ourselves, the more we can figure out our struggles, the more healing we create for ourselves, the more healing we create for our families, for our ancestors, but also for the entire world, because everybody's connected. It's like when we do the work for ourselves, we heal our global community. So the more people that heal their own life, heal their own struggles. You just have to focus on your own issues of what it is you're struggling with. Because when you heal that, your frequency is going to change, which is going to change everything else. So think about if everybody took that step and created healing for themselves, how different our world would be.
Inspired Soul, Lumen Being, if you're loving this conversation, don't forget to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and I'd love for you to join in on the conversation. In the comments section below, I have had some of the best conversations of my life, and I know the podcast is very rich, but there is so much wisdom in all of you as well. So what are you taking away from today's conversation with Dr. Lottie Valentin? The mother wound is a really deep piece. Conversations I wanted to ask her about, like the father wound, we didn't really get around to today. What are some of your curiosity points that you would like to ask Dr. Lottie Valentin? She's very active on social. She might just reply to your questions below. I can always, it's the third time she's back on, so I can always ask the questions on your behalf next time she's on as well. So leave your questions, leave your comments, join in on the conversation below. This is a deep topic, so let's, treat it with care and respect and love, which you guys always do anyway. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Back to Dr. Lottie. So Dr. Lottie, even in your chart, things were sort of set up a certain way when you were coming in for things to happen right at those opportune moments. And then do you think some of us sign up for particular mothers and we carry our soul family? And it was really interesting what you just said in terms of you might have 10 that you were here to work through, but you work through 8 and then you hand down 2. Like, that's fascinating, and thinking about kind of destiny and sort of what you're here to work on and what challenges and what blessings kind of serve you on your path, but then feeling into the mother wound and potentially how that's serving you to forge who you are. And then you'll bring this frame of healing in, and it sort of implies destiny amongst soul families to work through certain patterns of karma. Am I overreaching here?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to say we all, to a certain extent, choose our mothers. I think even when we don't have the greatest time, like I didn't have a great time for all those years, but I think that was part of my experience. And I think that, do we all choose our mothers? I think maybe some people don't. Maybe it's just random. Maybe, people call them walk-ins, like last minute assignment. The soul that was supposed to take that spot decided, no, this other opening came up. I'm going over here, right? Because people talk about like walk-ins and being that kind of like a last minute assignment, feeling like they're out of place in the family. Like, why did I come to this family? I'm not like these people, right? And they call them walk-ins because they're like last minute assignments. So did we all choose who how to come in? I'm going to say a lot of it is probably, predestined because everything is in your chart. I think a lot of the main events are part of our life to have certain experiences. Who are we going to meet up with? Who are we going to be? Who's going to be the partner? Who are we going to have children with if we're having children? I think a lot of that is predetermined in some way. I would like to say it's not, but I don't know. The more I do this work, the more I feel that there is something greater at play in the background. There is this divine component, right?
So
Of who we are.
where does healing fit in then? Because if it's already predestined and predetermined, is healing pointless?
No, because it's right? Depends how you look at it. Predestined to do the healing, right? So I'm going to say, so a lot of things are, I think things like the family you were born into might be predetermined. Like who you're going to have children with might be predetermined. But then there is, we also have the free will, right? So we have a choice. We have a choice to create healing or not to create healing. If we don't create healing, then we're just going to pass down things. We're going to repeat, mom was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic. Mom was abusive, so I'm going to be abusive. It's like monkey see, monkey do. But we have a choice also to change something, to look at things differently. Why is it that, some people get out of these situations? Part of it is their incarnation, right? And there's so many different factors at play. But I think we can all create healing, right? So is it predestined that you're going to create healing? It might be. It might be in your chart, right? Am I predestined? Was I predestined to be a healer in this life? Yes, I was predestined. It's in my astrological chart. It's in my numerology chart. Like in numerology, I'm an 11. So I have a master life path as a healer. I'm here to help heal humanity, create healing for people. That is my incarnation, right? I always knew I was a healer since I was like 3 years old. I've always known that. But then I grow up, my brain takes over. I marry an American, move to the United States, and then decide to major in business and computer science, become a programmer for IBM, right? Completely down the wrong track, considering I always knew I was a healer.
Well, now you're reprogramming mother wounds.
Right? So I always ask, like, what if I had just chosen the right path from the beginning? Would I not have had to be sick all those years? Would I not have had to do the near-death experience? Did that only happen because I was on the wrong path, right? Hard to say, but then at the same time, I feel like it was destined that way because then people would say, oh, it's in your chart. I can see you were supposed to have that experience on that day, right? To remind yourself. So it might have happened anyway. It's like it was, part of, because that spiritual component. If I had gone straight to medical school when I was in my 20s, right, I would already be a doctor. So I would just have worked as a healer, but I would probably still have had the near-death experience because that's in the chart. So I'm saying I had to have that experience to open up the spiritual component because I didn't have any belief in the spirit world. I didn't think that spirit world even existed. I was just, if somebody had told me that before my near-death experience, I would have said, that's not true. It's a hallucination, right? Because that's what I came from. That was my belief system. So my dad was a physician, and I told him about my near-death experience and how I had left my body, and he just laughed and he said, that can't happen. He was a physician. Because that's what I came from, right? That was my belief before it happened to me. I said the same thing. So he didn't have that belief. And when I went to Arthur Findlay College, I had a reading with one of my teachers, and she said, oh, your dad is popping in. And what did my dad say? He said, you proved me wrong. And then I just started laughing because I know exactly what he was referring to. So she goes, he's just saying you proved me wrong. I'm like, I get it. Now he's on the other side and he's like, you were right. Right. But he didn't have a belief system. He was a physician. He was a scientist. Right. And he had never had that experience himself. He knew the Bible inside out. He had gone to Sunday school since he was 3 years old. Right. But did not have that belief system. So, if you don't have that experience, I would have said the same thing. I would have said, that can't happen. Yes, I would not, because I think it's something you have to experience, right? I mean, some people just have the belief, it always, surprises me because I didn't have that belief system myself. But, some people are just so tuned in and they're like, no, of course the spirit world exists. And they came that way, or maybe that was the way they were raised. Who knows? But, I think we're all divinely guided in the end, and we do have free choice. So whether we're going to decide to heal or not, that's, I think, our choice. Because we have a choice how we see the world, what we want to do, how we're going to go about living our life. That's our choice. I can choose to, do this. I can choose to study that. I can choose to be a nurse. I could choose to be a doctor. I could choose to be a carpenter. Whatever it is, that's our free choice. We have that choice. I can decide I want to do something else tomorrow and do that, right? But ultimately, we incarnate to have an experience. I don't know. It's different. Do some people have more choices than I do? Because mine is so focused on healing, right? Other people might have, you're here to experience freedom. That's why you're here. You're here to learn to be patient in this life. You're here to be a homemaker in this life. You're here to, right? We all have something we incarnated for to learn in this life. So when I look at my past lives, I know that I've been a healer in past lives. I know I've been a psychic. I know I've been a medium in past life. And in this life, I'm just literally putting it all together. So I'm pulling from my past life experiences being one of those things. But in this life, I have to be the psychic, the medium, and the healer. So I have to be all three in this life. But we all do this. And do we get rest lives in between? Who knows? Maybe we get a rest life. Next life, hey, just let me come back as a golden retriever. I want lots of tennis balls and a swimming pool, right? Just give me a rest life in between. But, how much choice do we have? I don't know. But I think we're all guided in the end. We're all guided by our spirit guides. We're guided by our ancestors, what they did and didn't do, and our own past life experiences and what we came to learn in this life.
My current theory, and it's just a theory, I don't know if it's legit, but I've done a lot of these podcasts, is we have this inception and this point of birth, like here, as a node in a network. And then I literally see like a network tree, like on its side, instead of it going up and expanding into many different options. It's like on its side, and like our life path is chronologically a long time. And sort of as we go along, it's like, yeah, like it's destiny for you to make, you've got a choice point here, and you can kind of go yes or no. And then you got a choice point here, yes or no. And it sort of truncates out. And then, so there is a lot of destiny in your chart, but then based on that, you do have some free will to exercise. And it's like this quantum possibilities. And then you start thinking about how all the quantum network trees of each individuals interact with each other, and your mind goes, poof. But that's kind of what I find, with the free will destiny conversation. And it's like, and I can sort of see it. Like if I choose to heal, then potentially I flick onto a particular potential, or I flick onto another potential, and depending on how that, touch would manifest. So yeah, thank you for honoring that.
Because it's like you have the potential to heal. You have the potential to change your life. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. And if you don't do it, right, then do I come back and do it in the next life? I don't know. I always feel like, you incarnated with, 20 sticky notes on you. And then like for each thing you resolve, you get to peel off your sticky notes. And I always tell myself, no, I'm gonna fix this. I'm not coming back. I'm not doing my life again. It's too much work. Let's try to fix as many things as I can in this life, so I can come back and do something completely different next time. right?
Less stick.
Right.
Less
So
stick.
I think it's, part of that. Because if we go through life and we don't heal anything, I mean, what does that mean? We didn't learn much, right? So I feel, it can be the smallest things. Um, I came to learn confidence in this life. I came to learn to stand on my own feet, support myself. I mean, our incarnation, I think we make it so complicated. I think it's much simpler than what we think. So I incarnated to be a healer. So I work helping people heal. That's my work. And other people I came to be a piano teacher. I'm here to teach music. I'm here, maybe yours is I came to spread knowledge through the world. Huh? That's it. I'm living my incarnation. Right. So things are much simpler than we think. It's not like we have to come and write 20 books and, get 20 awards and all that. It's so simple in the end, who we are and why we incarnated. So we're having an experience. We're learning something. That's pretty much it. So we're going through life and kind of putting one foot in front of the other.
Dr. Lottie, is the mother wound always tied to our biological mother, or does it extend to the archetype of the divine feminine, the collective feminine, or potentially even Earth herself?
Right, the mother wound. Yeah, it depends on how you look at it. So when we talk about the mother wound, we talk about our mother, our physical mother, and what we are repeating from her, what wounds we carry from her, things that she didn't resolve. Um, and that is our physical mother in this life. So when we talk about the mother wounds, we talk about the physical mother where we came from. But when we heal, right, when we heal our mother wound, then what do we heal? Well, we heal the divine feminine within us, and we heal our Mother Earth. We are part of Mother Earth. We are in a symbiotic relationship with the earth, right? We breathe in the oxygen that the trees give us, right? We are creatures on the earth. We give earth something and earth gives us something. So we're in a relationship with Mother Earth, except most of us have forgotten that we are in a relationship with Mother Earth. But we have to take care of the Mother Earth, because otherwise we're going to make Mother Earth extinct. And Mother Earth is going to get mad at us. And, and we can see that with all the bad weather we've had recently, at least here in the United States, with the flooding and the tornadoes. And, the earth goes through cycles, but also we have the climate change and, how much of an impact are we as humans having on the earth, because we're plundering the earth. We can't sustain the type of life we have, right? Of buying things and using things and throwing away things and filling the earth with plastic, right? The earth is eventually going to say stop and have catastrophic floodings and all these different events, and the fires we had in California, right? Just burning out of control. And I'm going to say that's Mother Earth, giving back, saying stop the behavior. We need to take care of each other. We need to take care of the earth. We need to create more of a compassionate world, right? Because we're all connected. We're connected to all the people all the way around the earth that live in other countries that you might think that, they're different, or you're not connected to them, right? It's a different culture, different language, everything is different. But hey, go back a few generations and see where you came from, right? If you go back enough generations, we're all connected, right? So when you look at, like you were talking about the 23andMe and the DNA and all that, and you can see if you do those gene tests, that you're connected to these people that lived long, long, long ago. Right. So I have I have genes from the Neanderthals, right? I have 80% more gene markers from the Neanderthals than most people. That's what the 23andMe told me. So we're all connected. Like when you look at it that way, think about, I mean, we might be like you're my seventh cousin or something, because we're all connected. Well, as soon as you start going back a few generations, we all came from the same people. When you look, it's fascinating. Just think 20 years from now what we're going to know. When you think how far we came in the last 20 years, think 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, we didn't even have Google, right? So that was like in the early 2000s, we were just getting Google. Like back then, we had to type in the actual website. You had a book with website names, so you knew where to go. Like if you wanted to show your kids a museum, you would type it in. You would dial in. I remember the modem. That's when my kids were little, and we would dial in, and it took forever. And then finally, the website would slowly fill the screen, right?
And then someone would pick up the phone and terminate the internet connection midway through the loading page.
That was only 20 years ago. Like the floppy drives, right? That was like 30 years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And when you think about where we are now, we got artificial intelligence. Tell me about this, computer. Okay, it just spits everything back at you, right? I mean, it's amazing. So think about what the world is going to look like 20 years from now and how much more we're going to know. It's going to be, hopefully, it will go in the right direction. It will, create a more compassionate world where we all care about each other in a different way, instead of having, global economic competition, that we will all work together. But we have to make everybody understand that we're all connected, right? But for everybody that creates healing, it changes the world, because when you heal, you become a different person. You shed all the things that you're carrying. So you're going to start, you change, I always say, you change your glasses, right? When you heal your own wounds, you start interacting with people in a different way. So like in this course, for example, I do a lot of like boundary exercises, teaching people how to, set boundaries, because a lot of people don't have good boundary structure. So I take them through that, and then like how to, center your nervous system, calm down your nervous system, do some polyvagal exercises to teach people, how do I create calm in my nervous system? What happens when we experience trauma, right? What happens to the nervous system? So I have a couple of modules on that, and then teaching people, how do you create that calm? Because a lot of people have, different experiences, traumatic experiences in one way or another. And how do we then create that calm and peace within ourselves? How do we find that center? So that's part of all these different modules in my course of how to create that healing for people. So yeah, it's fascinating, because we can all create that healing. It's just a matter of, do we do it? The hardest part is to heal yourself, right? It's very easy to say, oh, my brother-in-law or my friend, blah, 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 they have this issue, you can see it, and, they don't get along. My friend doesn't get along with their mom or dad or their spouse or whatever. And you can see that. It's so easy for you to see it. But to see your own wounds, not so easy. So, because I had clients that are psychotherapists and counselors, and I've worked with them. And once I tell them what the issue is, and I say, okay, I know what it is. It's a mother wound. This is why. And then they just stare at me and they go, I do this for people all day long, but I couldn't see it for myself, right? And I really do feel like, we can't see the trees for the forest. It's like we're standing in the forest, but we can't see the trees, right? Because it's so hard to look into your own life, because we're so emotionally, we get emotionally wounded. We think of somebody, and then we carry that emotional wound, and we can't see the light, because we're wrapped up in our own emotions. So we have to take a step back and say, oh, now I can see it. So
yeah, I'll put a link to the course for people to access in the description and the show notes below. I think you were generous enough for everybody that's tuning into the Inspired Evolution. You put together a bit of a code. I think it's AMRIT30. If you do feel inclined to go into the program to shift, and I mean, after listening to you share, I'm like, I think I need to do the program. Touchwood, to be honest, it feels pertinent, potent, and relevant. Yeah, we all have a mother in many ways, but it is self-paced, right? Because I think you said you can do it in your own time is a big part of it. And one of the other questions I had, sorry, just one sec, was because you're doing the work energetically from your end, and it doesn't require your mother to do the work. or it doesn't require the mother to. No, it's just self-driven, self-healing, and then, like you said, with the net, the ripples sort of perpetuate out.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating is that people will do the work themselves and then notice how things change around them. And I've even had one client that said, my brother noticed that I had changed and said, I don't know what you're doing, but I can see you're changing. Like you're healing. And I just signed up. I'm going to go to counseling now. And she said, I never in my wildest imagination thought that my brother was going to go to counseling. And that was the right for him. But it's really interesting because just like, these people that say, my child is calling me now, or I'm talking to my mother that I haven't talked to for 10 years. What is that? I'm going to say that's what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, because there's something magical, right? I mean, when you think about how we are such divine, magical creatures that we're so interconnected. And all we have to do is heal ourselves. We don't have to worry about anybody else. You can't fix other people, right? As much as you would like to fix your spouse, your mother, your father, your grandmother and brother, and everybody else in your family, you can't. You are not in control of fixing them. They're on their own journey. They have their own life, right? But guess what? You can fix yourself. You can create healing for yourself. And then once you heal yourself, your view and the way you interact with those people is going to change because you became a different person when you healed. And then what happens is that they notice that. They're like, wow, you're so different. What happened, right? And then they start talking to you. They all of a sudden they're calling you. Maybe they start a healing journey, by themselves, because they can see the shift. They can feel the shift, and that's what's so magical, because we are magical, divinely interconnected humans on this planet Earth, having an experience. But that's what's so magical, right? Is that we create healing, and then other people feel that.
There's a question that I wanted to ask towards the beginning of the podcast, and we started diving into some other things. And if it's okay, I'll ask it now. So, in the nature of the mother wound, when I was inquiring about that, you explained the nature of the mother wound, but I made a bit of a note here. So, I sort of started seeing patterns. So, it's almost like my mother's carrying a pattern, and then potentially I mirror the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it really easy to see I've got a mother wound.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm wondering if there's a pattern that's maybe just say spinning clockwise. There are things that I've gone about in my life counterclockwise to counter sort of the spin that my mother's put in place. I've noticed that about myself at times, like, oh, I'm not going to do it that way, that's for sure. And then try to do it. But there is an energetic tangle there, right? Because I'm behaving in repose to something, right? And so I'm still carrying something in and around that touch wood. And then there's a third space, which is, yes, there's the pattern that she carries, and then there's the pattern that I carry. And then sometimes there's the interactive space, right? Like there's the interaction between her pattern and my pattern. And I wonder if there's anything about the interactions as well. Is that three sort of things that I see manifesting? Are they all in your awareness?
Yeah. So she has a pattern that she carries, right? And you have a pattern you carry. And the question is, how much of your pattern is her pattern? Or how much of your pattern that you made comes from her pattern? So you're counteracting some of her patterns. Why are you counteracting that? Because you have a mother wound, right? So there's things, well, I'm definitely not doing it that way because my mom did it that way and I didn't like that. So I'm going to do it this way, right? But then, deeper down, what is that? What is that pattern? What is that you're counteracting? And where does that come from? And what is it? What does that make you do or not do? What is that? What is it that you counteracted? So you're changing something because the way she did it. So it just depends on what it is, right? So when you look at the mother wound, you're looking at, what is it in my life that I'm struggling with? Could be anything. Could be relationships, could be anxiety, it could be confidence, it could be almost anything. And then you say, Well, why is it? Why is it that I'm struggling with that? Most likely a mother wound, like 90%. You always start with a mother. That's why this is the first course I put out. So there's many courses that are going to come that I've already taught that I just haven't recorded yet. But it always begins with the mother wound. So even when I get the other courses, that's gonna be like a big sign that says, do the mother wound course first, because you're not gonna be able to solve anything else if you didn't resolve your mother wound, because it all starts with mom. So you have to go there first. So it doesn't matter what comes down the line. But that is, you always have to start there, because with the impact of our mother and where we came from is so profound and who we became in this life, because it's 90% is subconscious. So a lot of that it's driving us, the subconscious mind, and we don't even know why. We just do things, and we don't even know why we're doing it until it sort of gets written on the wall, and then we say, wait a second. So when I've been teaching this course live, and there's like a question and answer or something afterwards, people will say, I didn't think I had this mother wound, but now that you mentioned it, now I realize, I just never realized that it came from my mom. And I've been struggling with this for, 20 years, because we sometimes think that, it's just my partner, but my partner doesn't know how to do it. And I don't know how to change my partner. It's not the partner, it's you. It's because this is a mother wound that you're carrying, the way you see your partner, and you have to heal your mother wound. And then that interaction is going to be very different with your partner, because of all the different things that can come from a mother wound. But sometimes we think it's the partner, or we think it's the friend, or we think it's somebody else, but it's actually a mother wound that's just sitting there waiting to be healed.
As we wrap up, is there a moment of compassion for mothers as well, for having to wear such a wound? They play this role as well, because obviously they've got their mothers and they've got their mothers and they've got their mothers. So, it's this thing, but
many
just a
times,
moment of,
right?
Yeah,
it
mothers,
goes through the generations.
like mothers have to wear that, and no matter how much they love you, like so many mothers just love with every ounce of their being, and somehow it's still,
I had one of those moms. I still had a mother wound, right? It doesn't matter. And I laugh because I have 3 kids myself. So, I did the best I could. I swear. I am sure they all have mother wounds, because you can't. It doesn't matter. Even if you're the best mom and you're doing the best thing, but that child needed a mom that was probably different. That's why they incarnated. They incarnated to have me as a mom. I was going to be this way. And by being the way I thought was being the best, loving, nurturing mom, probably didn't give them something else, because they needed something else, because that's their human being they incarnated to learn something else. So I think that we all carry mother wounds. It doesn't matter if you had the perfect mom. You're just going to have a wound that's a little bit more underneath the surface. You're going to think that you don't have a mother wound because you had a loving and nurturing mom. Well, I guarantee you still have a mother wound, because I work with it, for years now. And everybody that tells me that, they all have mother wounds, including myself. So it's just the nature of it. I think that's just part of life. Why would we incarnate to have a mother that we wouldn't learn something from? Doesn't make sense. We're going to learn something. And so the wound is just different for different people.
Dr. Lottie Valentine.
We just wish we didn't have a mother wound. We all have mother wounds.
Speak for yourself. After all of that, could you imagine? Thank you so much for your generosity, your time, your energy. And one thing I will say is, this is such a icky-picky topic. There's literally, we're putting our finger in a wound, as we've been discussing today. And I just want to, once again, just reflect back to you just how much gratitude I have for you, the way you carry yourself, the way you share, the work you do, and just, obviously you've been through and back a lot to be able to carry the work this way. But then also, yeah, man, I'm grateful that we have these conversations. I'm grateful we get to share them with the world. And also I'm really grateful for you when you feel into how dense this work can be, and how, I don't want to use the word icky, but like, you know, it's a wound, you need to poke in it. But the way you bring yourself, humor, lightness, depth, integrity, I mean, it's volumes that it speaks. So I'm so grateful for you, Dr. Lottie. Thank you for doing it with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure. I love what the work you do, and to spread this, you know, healing energy throughout the world. It brings healing to the people and all your listeners. So, thank you for your work. Yeah, I mean, I think some people are afraid of looking at it, or they think that they don't have a mother wound. Right? It's always hard. It's always hard to do the self work of saying, okay, well, let me take a look at that. Let me do this. Right? But there's like a calling. There's like a calling inside of you that says, you know, nobody will know. I mean, some people are worried about, like, if they're going to show up on a course, right? They're going to be seen on the screen. Other people will see their name, that they're in the course. This is a self-study course. Nobody knows. You can just do it at your own pace. You know, and you can go through the modules on your own. That's what's the beauty of a self-study course, is that you're just doing it yourself, or you can do it with your partner, right? If you're in the same household.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So, you know, because we all have mother wounds, and there's so much healing that happens when we go through and do that work. We're like, wow, like people change, right? They change at the core.
You, Inspired Soul, you made it through to the end of another incredible episode. Thank you so much to you and your inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother, walking this path by your side. I just want to take a massive moment out to thank all of you that are subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and support. Everything you see around here, like I like to say, is truly powered and empowered by your subscription to the channel. Thank you. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. Conversations like this coming out twice a week. There's a subscribe button just below. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. It supports us in everything we're doing, championing love, positivity, wisdom, and wellness around the planet. Thank you so much in advance for your incredible love and support. To continue your inspirations evolving onwards, upwards, and inwards, here's a conversation with Matt Kahn on Inner Child Healing. I'll see you in that one. Go on, click on. I'll see you there.